And up with me now is the executive director of the Unforgettables Foundation, Tim Evans. And before I welcome him to the show, I wanted to tell you just a little bit about the foundation. The Unforgettables Foundation helps families with burial assistance after the death of a child. They also, I believe, and I'm going to talk to Tim about this, provide free CPR training. Tim founded the Unforgettables Foundation in 1999, and during a decade, clinical ministry to children and their families. He assisted families with many crises surrounding the death of a child, not the least of which are the crushing financial burdens experienced by families with limited resources. I find it very interesting that the Unforgettables Foundation is operated almost entirely by volunteers, which we're going to talk to Tim about. So welcome to the show, Tim.
Hi, Deborah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, your foundation is just amazing. And I just, of course, told everybody just a little bit about it. So tell us a little more about how you came to start this and your experience and where you are today.
Well, thank you. Oh, it was probably in 1986, 87, about 30 years ago, when I was a minister of a large inner city church in Washington, D.C., and we had a couple of our kids die. They were part of single-parent homes. And until that moment, I didn't realize some of the financial obligations that went along at this devastating time for families. But it's a 72-hour process that you really need to kind of get the little body out from the hospital or from the home and get to the mortuary and have a funeral. And most parents and families, especially 30 years ago, were not looking at cremation. So you're looking at a funeral, which can be rather expensive. And if it's an at-risk family, then you're really adding an extra pressure in the darkest time of their life, the greatest challenge. And so when I then came to Loma Linda to be the chaplain of Children's Hospital, when they first opened the Children's Hospital in 1990, I pretty much saw it, Deborah, almost every single day. And not because Loma Linda's a bad hospital.
No, I understand.
We're getting the sickest kids in the area, and so, you're going to get a higher acuity. And so you're getting all of this all of these illnesses, these diseases, these accidents, these domestic abuse situations. And so I saw it day in, day out, and realized how many families were short of cash.
Okay. Well, and in fact, it's not something that any of us ever think about until it happens to you.
Right.
I am curious because it's never, I have not had to arrange any kind of services for anyone that's passed. So if a family at risk, if they have a child that passes and they have no funding, how does that work? Who steps in?
Well, usually the responsibility, ultimately, of every child is the coroner of the county. And the coroner is usually a sheriff these days, and then there's a department. And if no one steps forward after 3 to 6 months, then usually the bodies are politely and discreetly cremated at the coroner's office and then laid to rest in what's known as a pauper's field. Every county has one, and it's usually connected to a regular cemetery, and it's usually a little area of land, most usually not covered with grass, but just a little dirt lot, and that's where the mortuary, out of their good heart, will cremate and then bury the little remains that are left, the ashes. And they'll put it in one of these, like, pneumatic tubes, like we used to use at the bank, and they'll auger down a hole into the ground, and then a number is ascribed, usually just for record keeping. And I just thought that we could do much better in this culture. I am in no way ever indicting the mortuary. I have found the mortuary and cemetery industry to be wonderful, caring people, but they're a business. And my dad, when I got into charity, said, look, don't forget that you're going to be asking for support from businesses who have payrolls to make, they have bills to pay, they have overhead, they have stockholders. So, the mortuary industry is the same way, but they're very good people. But there's that gap in the system where what happens to the severely financially challenged? And unfortunately, Deborah, if you check the stats, right now about 60% of families in the United States have only 30 days to fall back on as far as what they have in the way of savings.
Oh, that's devastating.
If you're looking at $5,000 to $10,000 overnight for a funeral, it's gonna crimp a high number of people.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's absolutely amazing. And then the Unforgettables Foundation is operated almost entirely by volunteers. Is that true?
Yes. For the first 12 years, I and my former wife pretty much ran it as volunteers. In the last 6 years, I've become the employee on a full-time basis, the only one, and we cover Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Clark County in Vegas.
Wow.
So it's a huge territory for one full-time employee. But we do have one half-time office person, and then we have, and I don't say this crudely, we have a truck full of volunteers who are phenomenal. Our charity would have never survived on just Tim Evans. It needs all the skills and
God
the
bless
talent
volunteers. Seriously, yeah. Well, let me ask you. You have I have just a couple minutes left, but you have an event coming up, Lights for Little Lives Walk. Can you tell us about that?
Every New Year's Eve for the past 17 years, it was the very first event we ever started, we have had Lights for Little Lives Walk, and the name Unforgettables is because every family does not want their child's memory forgotten. And so at this event, 3:30 New Year's Eve in Loma Linda, as a regional event, free of charge, family-friendly, we meet in the parking lot of Ronald McDonald House across the street from Children's Hospital, and we release doves and then walk 3 blocks to the Campus Hill Church in Loma Linda, where we allow every family in the audience who's lost a child, whether we've helped them or 50 years ago, or whether the family was able to afford their own funeral, we allow them to come up as a group to the stage, say the name of their child, to keep that name alive year after year after year, and to light a candle in their child's honor on stage. And it is a beautiful event. It's free of charge.
It sounds beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Well, do you need any volunteers? Are you seeking volunteers for that event, or are you all set for New Year's Eve?
We're volunteers, but we want people to come out and experience it. And the other thing it does is it lets families who've lost children know that their child is remembered, their families that loved and supported, and it just makes a beautiful statement to these families when tons of people show up.
Absolutely, Tim. Well, we're going to post this event and try to get as many people there and that your message out. We really thank you so much for what you do for these families. It's really a miracle that that somebody like you is here. And Happy New Year to you, and thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Deborah. Can I give our website real quick?
Absolutely.
www.unforgettables.org. That's 2 T's and an S, and unforgettables.org. And I invite everyone to go there. We're a classic small charity doing great things.
Awesome. And we're going to post that as well. Happy New Year. Thank you.
Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much.